Ambassador Chen maintained her composure as she left the speaking dais, ignoring the dismissive trills and harmonic vibrations that passed for laughter among the council species. Her security detail, 4 stone-faced men and women in the midnight blue of Earth's diplomatic corps, closed ranks around her as they navigated the sweeping corridors of the council citadel. "That went about as expected," murmured Lieutenant Santos, her head of security. His eyes continuously scanned the ornate hallway with predatory alertness that made nearby council attendants instinctively step back. "Exactly as expected," Chen replied, her voice low enough that only her team could hear. "Activate Signal Relay Alpha. Earth needs to know the diplomatic option is exhausted." Santos tapped a sequence on his wrist unit, sending the coded message that would travel through quantum channels to Earth Command. Operation Exodus would now accelerate from contingency planning to full implementation. 30 years of preparation, hidden beneath the veneer of human submission to council restrictions, would finally bear fruit. The delegation approached the docking bay where their shuttle waited. Council guards, tall, willowy pelerin with their characteristic blue-green skin and 4 arms, stood at formal attention. Unlike human security personnel who remained vigilant and responsive to potential threats, council guards maintained perfect, statue-like postures, their large eyes rarely blinking. Their evolutionary history as herd grazers who relied on perfect stillness to avoid predator detection remained evident in their security protocols. "Ambassador Chen," called a melodic voice from behind. Chen turned to see Diplomat Tenera, the Tulkar representative, approaching with the gliding movement of her species. The feathered crest atop her head was flattened, a sign of confidential communication among her kind. "A moment of your time, if you would," Tenera said, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the ambient light in prismatic patterns. Chen nodded to her team, who created a privacy buffer while remaining within protective range. "They still don't understand what you're doing," Tenera said, her voice dropping to a register that humans found almost uncomfortably bass. "The High Council believes this is a negotiating tactic." "And what do you believe, Diplomat Tenera?" Chen asked. The Tulkar's inner eyelids flickered rapidly, their equivalent of a knowing smile. "I believe humans have always been underestimated by the Council. My species was the first to recognize your potential. That's why we established direct trade agreements outside Council oversight. Agreements that serve the Tulkar well," Chen noted, "as they served humanity. Mutual benefit without Council interference." Tenera's feathered crest rippled slightly. "The Council will not comprehend the seriousness of your withdrawal until systems begin failing. By then, human evacuation will be too far advanced to stop." Chen kept her expression neutral. "An interesting theory." Tenera extended a 4-fingered hand in the formal Tulkar gesture of respect between equals, a gesture rarely offered to humans in Council space. When the Council finally realizes its error and seeks to re-establish contact, remember that the Tulkar recognized humanity's value before the others. "I'll keep that in mind," Chen replied, returning the gesture precisely. As the Earth shuttle broke orbit from the Council homeworld, Chen watched the gleaming towers of the Citadel recede through the viewport. The massive structure represented 5,000 years of galactic governance, elegant, unchanging, and utterly resistant to human inclusion as equals. "Set course for Earth," she ordered, "and open a secure channel to the President. He needs to hear directly from me that Plan Omega is now active." The shuttle accelerated away from the jewel-like planet, its navigation systems already calculating the jump coordinates that would begin humanity's most audacious gambit since leaving Earth's atmosphere centuries before. Not a retreat, but a strategic withdrawal that would shake the foundations of galactic civilization. The Council had 3 months before the first critical systems began to fail. 3 months before they discovered just how deeply humanity had integrated itself into galactic infrastructure while appearing to accept second-class status. 3 months before panic began. The massive colony ship New Horizon lifted silently from the sprawling spaceport of New Titan, its gravitic engines distorting the air like heat waves above desert sand. Captain Maya Rodriguez watched from the bridge as the last human outpost on Proxima Centauri B diminished below them. 15 years of her life spent building this colony, now abandoned in less than 3 weeks. Final personnel count confirms all 12,347 colonists are aboard and secured for departure, reported her XO, Commander Okafor. Automated systems have initiated clean shutdown protocols in all major facilities. Rodriguez nodded, her throat tight with emotion she couldn't afford to show. What about the failsafes? All implemented according to Earth Command specifications, Okafor replied. Life support and agricultural systems will continue functioning for approximately 26 standard days, then begin cascading shutdowns. Any council species attempting to repopulate will find the infrastructure non-responsive to their neural patterns. The same scene was repeating across 17 worlds where humans had established permanent settlements under increasingly restrictive council oversight. Not a single destruction charge had been set. Humanity wasn't interested in vengeance or demonstrative violence. They simply designed their technology to work exclusively for humans, a fact they had never shared with the council. Captain, we have an incoming transmission from the Council administrative vessel in orbit, said Communications Officer Park. They're demanding explanations. Standard response package, Rodriguez ordered. And then initiate stealth protocols. The message would be the same one delivered to all Council representatives. Earth's terms for continued participation in galactic affairs had been rejected. Therefore, all human citizens and assets were being withdrawn in accordance with Article 17 of the Colonial Settlement Treaty, a provision the Council had included but never imagined humans would invoke. New Horizon accelerated toward the system's edge where the jump gate waited. Unlike the ornate, jewel-like Council vessels, human ships were utilitarian, built for function rather than display. The Council had always viewed this as evidence of humanity's primitive aesthetic sensibilities. They never recognized it as the hallmark of a species evolved to prioritize survival over display. On the Council administrative vessel Harmonious Accord, Prefect Velnor of the Moruvan Oversight Committee watched in disbelief as the human colony ship activated some form of sensor-deflecting technology and effectively disappeared from their monitoring systems. Impossible, he sputtered, his gill slits flaring with agitation. Their technological level shouldn't permit such capabilities. His aide, a junior administrator named Trell, tentatively offered, "Perhaps we've underestimated their development, Eminence." This would not be the first time. Velnor's cranial ridges darkened with blood, a sign of anger in Moruvans. "Dispatch observers to the colony immediately. I want to know what they've left behind, and what they've taken." The inspection team returned 6 hours later, visibly confused. "The colony appears fully functional, Eminence. Power systems operational, atmospheric processors running. Even the agricultural domes are active." But what?" Velnor demanded. "It's as if the colony is running itself. When we attempted to access any control systems, we received error messages saying human biometric authentication required. Even basic food dispensers won't activate without human thumbprints." Across Council space, the pattern repeated itself. Human outposts, research stations, and settlements stood empty yet functioning, temporarily. Council officials discovered that human-designed systems recognized only human users, and no override codes existed. On Earth, President Marcus Chen reviewed the Exodus progress reports with his cabinet in the underground command center beneath New Geneva. Holographic displays showed green status indicators for 87% of evacuation operations. "The Council still believes this is a negotiating tactic," he said, studying the diplomatic dispatches. They'd scheduled another session to address human concerns 3 weeks from now. Defense Minister Adesanya smiled thinly. "By then, the first major systems will begin failing. The Pellerin Transit Network relies entirely on human-designed adaptive algorithms. Without updates, it will degrade to basic functionality within 27 days. Chen nodded grimly. and then they'll start to understand. We were never their servants or their children. We were their invisible infrastructure. And now we're walking away. Chief Medical Administrator Selena Kavarian rushed through the gleaming corridors of Stillaris Medical Center, her normally immaculate robes disheveled from hours of crisis management. The hospital complex on Rigel Prime served 17 different species and spanned nearly 6 square kilometers. For the first time in its 300-year history, it was failing. Status report, she demanded, entering the central monitoring hub where her top specialists had gathered. Life support is operating at 42% efficiency and declining, reported Chief Engineer Malden, his elongated fingers dancing across holographic controls. The environmental systems are rejecting all override attempts. The human biopatterns we synthesized from archived data aren't fooling the authentication protocols. Kavarian suppressed a shudder. 36 patients in critical care relied on those systems. Patients who would die if the Council couldn't solve this crisis. What about the backup systems? She asked. They're human-designed as well, replied Malden. The Council procured 97% of medical technology from human corporations over the last 2 decades. We'd never questioned why their systems were so intuitive. Because they were designed by predators, Kavarian thought but didn't say. The human capacity for anticipating needs, for imagining worst-case scenarios, traits that evolved from hunting, had made their medical technology unmatched in the galaxy. Administrator, called a voice from the communication station. The Council emergency session is about to begin. Your presence is required virtually. Kavarian smoothed her robes and stepped onto the transmission platform. The air shimmered around her as her image was projected to the Council chamber on the capital world. The virtual chamber materialized around her, filled with the holographic representations of over 200 Council representatives. Many appeared disheveled or agitated, unprecedented for the normally composed Council. First Speaker Dorlath, an ancient Pellerin whose skin had faded to pale blue with age, called the session to order. Fellow representatives, he began, his voice wavering slightly, we face an unprecedented crisis. Human withdrawal from Council space has triggered cascading technological failures across our territories. This was, he paused, clearly uncomfortable with what he had to say. This was clearly premeditated and coordinated. Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. The Moruvan representative, Velnor, rose to speak. First Speaker, how could we have missed this level of dependency on human technology? Our assessments classify them as a developing species with limited advanced capabilities. An uncharacteristic bark of laughter came from the Tulkar representative. All eyes turned to Tinera, whose feathered crest was fully extended in what those familiar with her species recognized as amused contempt. We classified them as we wished to see them, Tinera said. Primitive, manageable, unthreatening, while they quietly integrated themselves into every aspect of our infrastructure. The Tulkar Trade Ministry warned the Council 7 cycles ago that our dependency on human innovation had reached dangerous levels. And yet your species continued to trade with them, accused Velnor. Of course, Tinera replied smoothly. We recognized their value. We treated them as equals in our dealings. Perhaps that's why Tulkar systems are experiencing fewer failures than Moruvan ones. Kavarian stepped forward into the light. Honored representatives, philosophical debates can wait. Stellaris Medical has 36 critical patients whose life support is failing. We need solutions, not accusations. First Speaker Dorlath's ancient face looked suddenly every one of his 300 years. Administrator Kavarian, your situation is replicated across Council space. The Pellerin transit system is operating at minimal capacity. Agricultural production on 7 worlds has decreased by 30%. Entertainment networks have lost all human content, which apparently constituted 63% of consumed media. He paused, his large eyes blinking slowly. The Council has dispatched our fastest vessels to Earth with authorization to offer full acceptance of their original terms. But given the systematic nature of this withdrawal, I fear they anticipated this response and will demand more. From the shadows of the chamber, the rarely seen representative of the archivists spoke, their voice like rustling leaves. They won't return on any terms we offer. Not yet. The humans have planned this exodus for years. They're showing us what the galaxy is like without them. When they return, if they return, it will be as equals, not supplicants. In the silence that followed, Kavarian thought of the humans she had worked with over the years, how they would look at problems differently than council species, how they would pursue solutions with a relentless focus that sometimes frightened her. The council had mistaken that predatory persistence for primitive aggression. Now they were learning the difference, too late. Captain Laurel Nev Saren of the Council defense vessel Eternal Vigilance watched in horror as the Vrax warship tore through his squadron's formation. The vessel resembled a massive insectoid predator, its organic metal hull rippling with iridescent patterns as it absorbed energy blasts from Council weapons without apparent damage. Defensive pattern, Sigma 3, Nev Saren ordered, struggling to control the tremor in his voice. The elegant council ships, with their flowing lines and crystalline sensor arrays, moved into a perfect geometric formation, exactly as their tactical doctrines prescribed. The Vrax ship ignored the mathematical perfection of their defensive screen and simply accelerated through it, scoring a direct hit on the Celestial Harmony whose shields collapsed immediately. Barbed boarding pods erupted from the Vrax vessel, puncturing the council ship's hull like parasitic wasps attacking prey. Captain, his sensor officer reported, "We're receiving distress calls from the Harmony. The Vrax are. They're taking the crew." Nev Saren felt the ice of primal fear spread through his nervous system. The Pellerin evolutionary response to threat. Freeze and camouflage. Ward with his training as a council officer. On the tactical display, he watched as 3 more Vrax vessels emerged from jump space. "All vessels, emergency withdrawal," he ordered, hating himself for the decision even as he made it. "Maximum speed to Centauri Way Station. We must warn the Council." As the Eternal Vigilance accelerated away from the battle, Nev Saren accessed the ship's historical database. For centuries, the Vrax had been considered a myth, a spacer's tale used to frighten cadets. Reports of missing ships and outposts along the galactic rim had been dismissed as pirate activity or navigational errors. Yet here they were, the nightmare predators, suddenly active and hunting in Council space. What had changed? The answer appeared on his screen as he accessed secure Council records. Human Defensive Array Network status. Offline. Nev Saren stared at the file in disbelief. According to these classified reports, humans had maintained an extensive sensor and automated defense network along the borders of Council space for over 15 years. A network that had been quietly neutralizing Vrax incursions without the Council ever being informed. A network that had gone offline exactly 3 weeks after humanity began its withdrawal. At Centauri Way Station, chaos reigned as refugees from attacked colonies streamed into the massive space station. Council security forces struggled to maintain order among the terrified civilians from 7 different species. Security Commander Thela Voss tried to coordinate the evacuation efforts while fielding increasingly panicked communications from Council headquarters. The directive to Project Calm and Control seemed absurd given the situation. "Commander," called her communications officer, "we're receiving a transmission on an unknown frequency. It appears to be of human origin." Voss hurried to the communication station. "Put it through." The holographic display flickered, resolving into a geometric pattern that Voss recognized as a human encryption key. After a moment, text appeared. "To Council security forces, Vrax hunting patterns follow predictable cycles. They attack for 72 hours, then withdraw to process captured biomass. Current attack cycle began 47 hours ago. You have approximately 25 hours before their withdrawal. Use this time to evacuate priority personnel. Do not attempt to engage Vrax vessels directly. Their hulls are specifically evolved to absorb energy weapons. Coordinates attached show 7 former human outposts equipped with retrofitted defenses that can repel Vrax borders. These facilities will recognize Council emergency authorization codes for the next 30 days *. This is the only assistance we will provide without formal negotiation between Earth Command and the Galactic Council as equal partners *. Exodus Protocol Command *. Voss stared at the message, emotions warring within her. Fury at the humans for abandoning them to this threat. Confusion at why humans would offer even this limited help. Relief at having any actionable intelligence about their enemy. Verify these coordinates, she ordered, and prepare to implement emergency evacuation to these locations. As her officers scrambled to comply, a final line of text appeared on the display. * We warned the Council about the Vrax 7 years ago. Your representatives classified our reports as primitive xenophobia and warmongering. Remember that when you negotiate with us *. The message dissolved, leaving Voss with the uncomfortable realization that humanity hadn't just withdrawn their technology and presence. They'd withdrawn their protection. Protection the Council had never acknowledged or appreciated. The Council delegation's ship, the Harmonious Accord, hung in space at the edge of the Sol system, its ornate design a stark contrast to the utilitarian human defense platforms that surrounded it. High Counselor Gente of the Moruvan Conclave stood on the observation deck, his gill slits fluttering with anxiety as they waited for permission to approach Earth. "They've kept us waiting for 6 hours," said diplomatic attaché Velnor, unable to maintain the stoic demeanor expected of Council representatives. "It's a deliberate insult. It's a negotiating tactic," corrected Counselor Tenera of the Tulkar, her feathered crest rippling slightly in amusement. "One that appears to be working quite effectively on you, attaché." Before Velnor could respond, the ship's communication system activated. A holographic projection appeared, not the expected human diplomatic officer, but a simple text message. "Permission granted for approach to Earth Orbital Station. Follow designated flight path precisely. Deviation will result in immediate defensive response." Gente felt his inner eyelids close reflexively, a Moruvan expression of resignation. So much for Council dignity. "Pilot, follow their instructions exactly." As the Harmonious Accord approached Earth, the delegation marveled at the activity surrounding the planet. Massive construction projects dotted Earth orbit. Ships of designs they'd never seen before moved with purpose between Earth and its lunar colonies. There was no sign of the economic collapse or social upheaval the Council analysts had predicted would follow humanity's withdrawal from galactic trade. "They were never dependent on us," Tenera observed quietly. "We were dependent on them." The delegation docked at Unity Station, a sprawling orbital facility that served as Earth's diplomatic hub. They were escorted by human security personnel whose measured movements and direct eye contact made the Council species instinctively. Chen activated a holographic display showing a comprehensive treaty document. "Earth will assist with the Vrax threat under these conditions. Full political equality in all Council matters. Independent human military operations without Council oversight. Unrestricted access to all Council scientific and historical archives. And reparations for 3 decades of resource extraction from human colonies under inequitable terms." Gente stared at the demands in shock. "This is unprecedented." "So is the Vrax threat," Chen replied calmly. "So is humanity's position. The Council needs us far more than we need the Council. You have 48 hours to consider our terms before we withdraw the offer." As the Council delegation huddled to discuss the impossible situation, they gazed through the conference room's viewport at Earth below. Not a struggling civilization, but a thriving, independent power that had concealed its true capabilities for decades. They had never understood humans. Perhaps they never would. Commander Alexandra Novak suppressed a sigh as she watched the Pellerin Admiral's chromatophores pulse with stress patterns for the 5th time in as many minutes. The briefing aboard the Council flagship *Luminous Harmony * wasn't going well. Let me understand this correctly, Admiral Theron said, his forearms moving in agitated patterns. You want us to deliberately position our most valuable defensive vessels as bait. That's correct, Admiral, Novik replied, keeping her voice level. The Joint Human Council operation had been hastily assembled following the treaty signing, and cultural friction was inevitable. The Vraks hunt like pack predators. They've adapted to your defensive strategies because those strategies are perfect and perfectly predictable. Around the holographic tactical display, Council military officers from 7 species watched with expressions ranging from confusion to horror. Their evolutionary backgrounds, all stemming from prey species, made the concept of deliberately appearing vulnerable fundamentally disturbing. The Vraks expect you to form mathematically perfect defensive formations, Novik continued, manipulating the holographic display to show previous Council Vraks encounters. They've adapted their attack vectors specifically to counter these patterns. What they won't expect is for the prey to act like a predator. Science Officer Talam of the Tulkar, one of the few Council officers who seemed genuinely interested in human tactical thinking, leaned forward. You're suggesting we think like humans, like predators, to counter the Vraks. Precisely, Novik said with an appreciative nod. The Vraks have never encountered another predator species in space. Their entire strategy is built around exploiting prey behavior. She adjusted the tactical display, showing a new formation. Council ships will appear to maintain standard defensive patterns around Centauri Way Station. Meanwhile, human vessels will use our stealth technology to hide in sensor shadows when the Vraks commit to their attack run. The hunter becomes the hunted, Talam finished, her feathered crest rising with excitement. Admiral Theron's chromatophores finally settled into a pattern indicating reluctant acceptance. This violates every principle of Council military doctrine. But given our recent failures against the Vraks, perhaps that's precisely what we need. 26 hours later, Commander Novik stood on the bridge of the Earth Defense Force vessel Artemis *, hidden in the magnetic shadow of a gas giant's moon. The tactical display showed Council ships arranged in their characteristic defensive formation around Centauri Way Station, where thousands of refugees had gathered. Vraks vessels detected, reported Tactical Officer Rodriguez. 3 warships on approach vector consistent with previous attacks. All ships maintained stealth protocols. Novik ordered across the secure channel to the other 11 human vessels concealed throughout the system. Wait for the Vraks to fully commit. On her display, she watched as the Council ships executed their defensive maneuvers with perfect precision. Exactly as they always did. Exactly as the Vraks expected. The insectoid warships accelerated toward the formation, confident in their approach. Now, Novik commanded when the Vraks reached the predetermined engagement point. 12 human vessels simultaneously deactivated their stealth systems and executed a coordinated attack on the Vraks ships from multiple vectors. No elegant formation, no mathematical precision, just the chaotic, unpredictable assault pattern of apex predators. The Vraks' response was immediate and telling. Their formation broke apart, individual ships attempting to evade rather than coordinate. They had never faced an enemy that hunted them back. Target their propulsion systems, Novik ordered. Don't let them jump out. Human weapons, designed with a predator's understanding of disabling prey, struck with precision. Within minutes, 2 Vraks vessels were dead in space, the third severely damaged. On the Council flagship, Admiral Theron watched in astonishment as the tactical situation reversed completely. It's working, he murmured. They're actually retreating. Science Officer Talam studied the Vraks' movements with fascination. They're displaying classic prey behaviors now. Disorganized flight, abandonment of pack structure, prioritizing individual survival. They don't know how to respond to being hunted. When the battle ended, Council and human officers gathered on Centauri Way Station for the operational debrief. The mood was markedly different from the tense planning session. Council officers who had been standoffish now listened attentively as Commander Novik explained the tactical principles behind their success. The key insight, she concluded, is that predator psychology and prey psychology create fundamentally different approaches to conflict. The Vraks, as predators, expected prey behavior from you. When faced with predator behavior from us, their own evolutionary instincts betrayed them. Admiral Theron approached Novak after the briefing, his chromatophores displaying a pattern she'd never seen before. Commander, the Council military has much to learn from humanity. Our evolutionary differences are not, perhaps, the weakness we assumed them to be. They may instead be our greatest strength when combined. Novak nodded, recognizing the significant admission from a council leader. Different perspectives, Admiral. That's all we ever wanted you to acknowledge. Professor Elijah Kim adjusted his translator interface as he surveyed the lecture hall at the University of New Terra. What had begun as a specialized seminar on human strategic thinking for a handful of council military officers had exploded into the most popular course on campus. Today, over 300 students from 12 different species filled the auditorium, their evolutionary differences evident in everything from their seating preferences to their note-taking methods. Today we'll explore how human art and entertainment reflect our predatory evolution. Kim began, and why these concepts are experiencing such popularity throughout former council space. He projected a series of images, ancient human cave paintings showing hunters pursuing prey, Renaissance battle scenes, modern action holovids, and finally, footage from the recent Vraks conflicts. Narrative tension, he continued, is central to human storytelling. Our entertainment has always focused on overcoming obstacles, pursuing goals despite setbacks, and confronting threats, all behaviors rooted in our predatory psychology. A Tulkar student, her feathered crest vibrating with excitement, raised a limb. Is this why human mystery novels have become so popular? The council had no equivalent literary form before contact with Earth. Kim nodded. Exactly. The concept of deliberately withholding information, creating puzzles for the audience to solve alongside the protagonist. This reflects the human predatory instinct to track, to pursue knowledge despite obstacles. In the back row, diplomatic observer T. Nara watched with interest. In the 8 months since the Human Council Alliance had been formalized, cultural exchange had progressed far more rapidly than anyone had anticipated. Council species, once terrified of humanity's predatory aspects, now seemed fascinated by them. After the lecture, T. Nara approached Professor Kim. Your course has quite the following, Professor. I understand there's a waiting list of over 2,000 students. Kim smiled. The interest is mutual. Our courses on council architectural harmonics and temporal perception are equally oversubscribed at Earth universities. They walked together through the university grounds, where the previously sterile council architectural style had been modified with human-inspired elements, unpredictable pathways, varied textures, and spaces designed to create moments of discovery rather than perfect sensory harmony. The High Lord of the Tulkar continues to protest what he calls the predatory contamination of council culture. T. Nara noted, his movement is losing support daily, especially among younger generations. Cultural exchange is never without resistance, Kim replied. Some humans are equally concerned about adopting too many council aesthetics. They worry we'll lose our edge, our predatory drive. They passed a mixed group of students gathered around a human-designed game board. Council species learning the concept of strategic competition with obvious delight. Nearby, human students practiced the precise movement patterns of Pellerin's ceremonial dance, learning to appreciate the beauty and perfect harmony that their predatory instincts typically overlooked. The Moruvan Science Academy published a fascinating paper this morning, T. Nara said, changing the subject. Dr. Voss suggests that council species have been evolutionarily stagnant for millennia precisely because we eliminated all predatory pressures from our environments. She hypothesizes that contact with humans represents the first significant evolutionary pressure our cultures have experienced in thousands of years. Kim raised an eyebrow. That's a controversial position. Increasingly less so, T. Nara replied. The evidence is compelling. In just 8 months, Council research output has increased by 43%. Cultural production has diversified dramatically. Even birth rates have increased among several council species, as if contact with a predator species has triggered dormant survival instincts. They reached the university's central plaza, where a new sculpture stood, a collaboration between human and council artists. It depicted intertwining forms representing the predator and prey aspects of sentient evolution, neither dominating the other, both necessary for the whole. "We never understood what we were missing," Tinera admitted quietly. "The council achieved perfect stability, perfect harmony, and with it, perfect stagnation. Humanity frightened us because you represent change, unpredictability, the pursuit of the new. And the council fascinated us for the opposite reason," Kim replied. "Your stability, your commitment to harmony, your ability to achieve consensus. These are the counterbalance to our predatory drive." Around them, students from Earth and a dozen council worlds mingled freely, each learning from the other, each culture transforming through the exchange, not through conquest or submission, but through recognition of complementary strengths. "The High Lord claims we are losing our identity," Tinera said, watching the students with her multifaceted eyes. "I believe we are finding a more complete version of it instead." The Galactic Alliance Charter signing ceremony took place aboard Unity Station, a massive space station constructed at the former border between Council and human space. The station itself embodied the new relationship. Council elegant aesthetics seamlessly integrated with human practical engineering, neither dominating the other. President Eliza Chen stood before the document that would formalize the transformation of galactic civilization. Around her, representatives of 23 species waited in a chamber that accommodated all their biological needs and cultural preferences. 5 years ago, she had walked away from the council as an ambassador. Today, she returned as the leader of humanity to sign a treaty between equals. "Before we sign," Chen said, her voice carrying through the chamber's perfect acoustics, "I want to acknowledge the journey that brought us here. 5 years ago, humanity made the difficult decision to withdraw from a relationship that didn't recognize our full value. It was not a choice made in anger, but in the clear-eyed recognition that true cooperation cannot exist without equality." High Counselor Theron, who had replaced the retired Genta as the Moruvan representative, inclined his head. "And we must acknowledge that it took humanity's absence for us to recognize how deeply intertwined our civilizations had become. It took facing the Vrax's threat without your assistance to understand the unique perspective your evolutionary history provides." Chen allowed herself a small smile. "Different paths, complementary strengths. That is the foundation of this alliance." She lifted the ceremonial pen, an anachronistic touch insisted upon by the tradition-minded council species, and signed her name to the document. One by one, the representatives of the former council did the same, their diverse appendages handling the pen in ways that reflected their evolutionary differences. From the observation gallery, Ambassador Marcus Santos watched alongside Tinera, whose role in the negotiations had earned her elevation to Tolkar High Representative. Below them, the massive viewport revealed a joint fleet formation protecting the station from a recent Vrax incursion. Council ships maintained their elegant, perfect formations as a defensive perimeter, while human vessels executed their unpredictable, aggressive maneuvers, keeping the predatory enemy off balance. "A fitting visual metaphor for our new relationship," Tinera observed, her multifaceted eyes reflecting the battle beyond. Santos nodded. "Stability and dynamism. Protection and exploration. Different approaches serving a common purpose. The old council believed space should be orderly, predictable, safe, like the environments our species evolved in." Tinera said thoughtfully. "We never understood that the cosmos rewards adaptability over perfection. Your species embraced challenge and change because your evolutionary path required it, and yours created unmatched harmony and cooperation," Santos replied. "Together, we're stronger than either would be alone." Their conversation was interrupted by an aide who approached with urgency. "Ambassador, High Representative, We've received a priority communication from the exploration vessel Horizon *. They've made first contact with a new sentient species at the galaxy's edge. Santos and T-Nera exchanged glances as they accepted the data tablet. The holographic display showed a species unlike any encountered before, neither clearly predator nor prey in evolutionary terms, but something entirely different. Aquatic origin, T-Nera noted, reading the preliminary data. Filter feeders who developed intelligence through communal information processing. Their neurology, their psychology, their entire perception of reality will be fundamentally different from either human or council templates. Santos felt a surge of excitement. The first joint contact mission for the new alliance. The perfect test case for our new protocols of mutual respect and complementary approaches. As they moved to join the newly formed First Contact Committee, the signing ceremony below concluded. President Chen's voice carried through the station's communication system. Today marks not an ending but a beginning. Humanity walked away not to isolate ourselves, but to return on terms that would allow true partnership. Together, we face a galaxy of challenges and opportunities with the combined wisdom of all our evolutionary histories. On the observation deck, Santos paused to look once more at the fleet formation protecting the station. Proof that differences need not lead to conflict, but could instead create strength through diversity. The former council species had learned that stability without change led to stagnation. Humanity had learned that independence without connection limited potential. We almost missed this, T-Nera said quietly, seeming to follow his thoughts. Had your species not had the courage to walk away? And had yours not had the wisdom to understand why? Santos finished. The ultimate demonstration of strength isn't in domination or isolation, but in finding the path to true partnership. Beyond the viewport, the stars beckoned, neither safe nor threatening, but simply filled with possibilities that would require all their combined perspectives to explore.